Indiana Pacers are giving up 3 of their superstar players. I'm giving away $500 to someone that subscribes and turns on our notifications on this channel, and I'm giving away another $500 to someone that follows me on Instagram. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? How do you guys like the shorter intro? So this isn't something you see every day. A team came out and said that we are willing to give up 3 of our best players in a trade. We are heading towards a rebuild, which is kind of interesting considering the fact that the Indiana Pacers have made moves that suggested that they are more interested in contending in an East that's getting significantly stronger. As a matter of fact, I don't think the East has ever been this strong, man. It's like the 1990s up in the NBA now. But I digress. Currently, at the time that I'm making this video, the Indiana Pacers have currently 10 wins and 16 losses, but they went ahead and hired a brand new head coach. Rick Carlisle returned home to Indiana to try to get the very best out of Domantas Sabonis, Myles Turner, Caris Levert, and Malcolm Brogdon, and ultimately that didn't yield the greatest results as they only have a 39% winning percentage. As a result, Shams Charania made a pretty big announcement that, I'm going to be honest, I personally did not expect. So this is coming from The Athletic. Shams Charania: the Indiana Pacers are moving towards a rebuild. They're receptive to trade talks centered on Caris Levert and either Domantas Sabonis or Myles Turner, which is a very interesting way to phrase things because they didn't say Caris Levert, Domantas Sabonis, or Myles Turner. They say either Caris Levert and either Domantas Sabonis or Myles Turner. So it means you could package all those players in one trade, or I think they want to keep one of those players. But let's go ahead and dive into this, champs, because you definitely have some explaining to do. In need of a new direction amid a 10-16 start to the season, the Indiana Pacers are moving towards a substantial rebuild and are expected to open up trade conversations around some of their veteran stalwarts, sources tell The Athletic. Multiple sources said that the Pacers are receptive in trade dialogue with rival teams, centered on potentially moving guard Caris Levert and either 2-time All-Star Domantas Sabonis or center Myles Turner. All 3 players have frequently garnered significant interest from rival teams. Pacers officials have received frequent calls on both of their big men over the past several seasons, but new head coach Rick Carlisle wanted an opportunity to spend time with Sabonis and Turner and grow with the roster. Even still, Carlisle has remained interested in seeing the front court duo together. Very interesting thing to know if you're an NBA fan: if you just hired a brand new head coach, the head coach looks at the current roster and says, okay, I'll come through and coach these guys. So in the case of Rick Carlisle, he looked at the Indiana Pacers roster and said, okay, Myles Turner, Domantas Sabonis, Caris Levert, Malcolm Brogdon sure beats the hell out of trying to make Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic work out together. No head coach can possibly make that happen. So what is the primary motivation for this happening, even though the Indiana Pacers aren't much into this year's season and they just hired a brand new head coach? Well, it has to do with one individual in particular, well, 2 individuals in particular, one being Mr. Chris Duarte and the other being Isaiah Jackson. Chris Duarte had a pretty awesome start to his career, averaging 13 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, and 2 assists per game off of 42% shooting and 35% from 3. Now, obviously, he's cooled down a little bit since the start of the season, but I'm assuming the Indiana Pacers want to free up some playing time so they can see what they have in Chris Duarte and Isaiah Jackson. And while Chris Duarte has received significantly more playing time than Isaiah Jackson, I guess the Indiana Pacers really like this upcoming draft class, or they feel like they're going to be one of those middle of the pack teams if they have Myles Turner and Domantas Sabonis and Caris Levert playing. Now, this is where things get very confusing. It says Duarte is a favorite of Rick Carlisle, but what's confusing is the fact that it's unclear to rival teams how swift the Indiana Pacers could begin to make moves, but it's expected the franchise will be patient in its trade approach and reach decisions based on the best offers that are made. Now, what gets really interesting is when we want to discuss what team is the most reasonable to trade for any of these players that the Indiana Pacers want to trade. But before we could get to that, we need to discuss why they are in this situation to begin with and why they want to break up this team, and it has to do with two of their veterans apparently not playing well together. Sabonis and Myles Turner. Apparently over the past few seasons, the Indiana Pacers were trying to figure out whether Domantas Sabonis and Myles Turner can coexist on the floor together and help the organization take the next step in playoff contention. The franchise has remained patient by seeing through both big men and their potential together in their primes, but a breakup now appears to be on the horizon. Domantas Sabonis isn't crushing it the way he typically does, and he is the Indiana Pacers' best player. He is an all-star. He's currently averaging 17.9 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, and 4.1 assists per game. So they probably saw Myles Turner and Domantas Sabonis not working out together, and those are their best players on their roster, and they figured, okay, there is a lot of teams that could use Myles Turner, there's a lot of teams that could use Domantas Sabonis, so let's go ahead and blow this bad boy up. I know what you guys are thinking, man, because I'm a Laker fan, and I know you guys are immediately going to say, Mike, the Los Angeles Lakers should trade for them. Well, here's the problem. As much as I would love the idea of Russell Westbrook being traded to the Indiana Pacers for Malcolm Brogdon and Myles Turner, the problem is the Los Angeles Lakers don't have a single draft pick until the 2025 NBA draft. There's no incentive for the Indiana Pacers to make such a move. As much as I would like such a move to be made, the same could be said for the Los Angeles Clippers. There's no assets for that team either. That's what makes this such a challenging situation, because there's no clear-cut team that could definitely make a move for one of these players. The teams with the most assets don't necessarily need to make a move for one of these players. I mean, you look at the Houston Rockets, they're currently on a 6-game win streak now that Jalen Green isn't playing. You got the OKC Thunder, who have way too many draft picks, but would they be interested in trying to trade those draft picks for some of these players? I don't know. An individual that absolutely crushed it for me when I was making Odell Beckham Jr. content on Microphone, my NFL channel, is this individual by the name of Evan Massey, and he gives two very good teams that could potentially enter the hunt for any of the players that the Indiana Pacers are into trading. The first one being the Charlotte Hornets. They are one of the teams closely monitoring the Pacers situation with Myles Turner and Domantas Sabonis, which makes a lot of sense because they are definitely in the market for a big man and they have way too many young players and way too many guards. On top of this, if you recall, there was an instance where Gordon Hayward wanted to return home to play for Indiana, but Danny Ainge completely fumbled the bag with trading Gordon Hayward to the Indiana Pacers because he wanted more than just Myles Turner, and then eventually he lost Gordon Hayward in a sign and trade to the Charlotte Hornets for second-round draft picks. This makes a lot of sense. Myles Turner brings defense to any team he goes to. Domantas Sabonis brings scoring and is one of the better defenders in the league as well. But another team that would be a very interesting fit, according to Evan Massey, is the Portland Trail Blazers. It would be a cool situation because Domantas Sabonis' dad, Arvydas Sabonis, was a longtime Portland Trail Blazers center and is considered to be a legend in Portland. But even furthermore, in a stroke of really bad luck from my previous video on Damian Lillard, I failed to mention that Damian Lillard has listed a bunch of players that are defense first that he wants to play with. Players like Ben Simmons, Jaylen Brown, and Aaron Gordon, and some other defensive players that are probably not listed on Damian Lillard's wish list, should this wish list be true, would be players like Domantas Sabonis and Myles Turner, because they are players that are very adept defensively, and they do have the assets to acquire such players. A part of me can't help but wonder if this report is a reaction to the recent rumors in regards to the Portland Trail Blazers. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think about all this. What would you do if you're the Indiana Pacers, and what teams do you think are the most likely to trade for one of these players? Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.